Hi, welcome back. We're going to be talking now a little bit about why it is that popularity is so important. How come this is something that is affecting us so much when we're young? And how come it is something we seem to kind of gravitate towards for the rest of our lives? Well, let's talk about that a little bit. One thing I'm going to point out the idea that this has become reality expalitic. Have you ever noticed recently if you're on the web, there's a lot of information about this trending. Whether you're on Twitter or whether you just looked at a news story or anything you see. You'll something see this graphic that talk about how many times has the story been tweeted, or how many people liked it on Facebook, or how many comments are there. And often that right at the top of the story. In fact, even after you're done reading the story, there's maybe the choose icon again, encouraging you like you should tweet about it, you should like it on Facebook. Why is that happening? We kind of almost grown accustomed to it. I think one of the reasons why this is happening is because it is based on this fundamental premise that if we see that a lot of people are really interested in something, we will think somehow it is good, it is important. We want to do what everyone else is doing, even if they resist that idea and we think, no, I'm an individual, I don't just conform. Still, we're kind of a bit influenced by that. We think, well, if it's something that 300 other people have liked it, that is must be something really important that I need to look at. It is the same thing when you watch a commercial and they say this is number one move at the box office. They're really trying to pull on the idea that's popular and therefore that means it is good. But why do they work so well? Why do we even care about the facts that everyone else is doing? I mean, I want to read the news stories that I think are interesting to me, and I don't think my interests are going to be the same as 10 100 other people that read the same news story. So why would I automatically think that that's important? It turned out that a lot of things might have to do with the way that we developed as a special, and the way that we can this about that is we took a step way back and thought about this from an evolutionary perspective. So let's do back the word of caveman and cavewoman, and really thought about what life was like at the time, because that's how we developed the brains we have today. Even though that's a long time ago, that's not very long ago from the perspective of the biological development. So there are a lot of ways that what happened back then is still influencing us today and still influencing how our brains work. So, have you ever noticed how if you wave then other people around you will yep? Yes, a kind of contagious. Or have you ever had that when women live together in close quarters or spend a lot of time together, their mental cycles will start as synchronized? That all has to be the same idea here. Did she say that when we care people a long time ago, we quickly learned that we're going to do a lot better if we lie together, and we kind of pay attention to signals from each other. So if you think about it, if you went on your own, well, you would have a hard time getting food, right? And if you got food and you killed something like a quaint, wild beasts or whatever, you're not going to be able to eat all of that all by yourself. So it is really inefficient. And if you try to save the rest of it, it is going to spot and you're going to get sick and die. And evolutionary, you're going to be went off. So we really learn that when it comes to food, then safely protection on other, or when it comes to other ways of coordination activities like when should we all the sleep. That way we can all go to the next part of where or nomadic group. So that helps us get to next top part of where we're trying to move to. It would be good if that well synchronized, and we were in a herd and learning to be a herd. And the more you stay in the herd, the more you sleep when everything sleeps. That way we can all work together and move together at the same time. The more that everyone stops to give birth and conceiving new babies, that should all happen at the same time. We should all eat together. We should all protect each other. If you are learning that herd, the choose things will be just on it. You won't get food. You won't be safe. You won't stop at the same time and other. And you might get kicked out. You might be alone. You might be unsafe. And that's not good for you. The people that did that, they weeded out Rouse natural selection, where all the people that survived by learning to pay attention to what the herd has to say. It turns out that has had a really cool interfacial effect on how our brains are put together, but we just recently discovered this in ways that we kind of didn't even expect. So there have been a lot of researchers that have been interested in understanding how the brain works, and in particular there have been a lot of people that have looked at how the brain kind of light up in fMRI. Let's say when we experience pain. So what I mean by that is there have been a lot of studies where they have asked people to lay down in fMRIs. They kind of laying there and they show them a screen over their head, and they give them an opportunity to experience some people of stimuli. Now in some cases choose might be real stimuli. So while their point in second is out of the fMRI, they might get a little break of some sort painful stimulus, and when that happens, the fMRIs would allow them to see what areas of the brain are kind of lighting up, and we learned it was variability for a very long time. We've seen as research what are particular areas that tell us that we experienced pain, and there are areas that tell it's time to start regulating this pain and doing something about it. Now, the part of our brain that signal pain is really important because the pain is of the ways. Is the brain a way of telling us something very serious is happening? You need to do something about it. This is doing to sending you several. So pain is key of the most powerful signal that our brain can give us to tell us as that if we don't do something soon, we may die or special may be in trouble. Well, and interesting that happened. So there were some researchers, including Naomi Eisenberg from USLA, who decided to some studies look at people of the fMRI machine in the magnet. As they asked them on instead of getting real pain, they asked them to participate in some situation where they like getting excluded by others. And the way that this worked was something there were real people that folks were communicated with while they were in the magnet, and sometimes they were just present, but away the experiment part it together so the person of the fMRI magnet that they we begin and included, and that other we choosing not to interact with them. So in a way it was kind of like they were getting a signal saying you're getting kicked out the head. You're not paying as a group anymore, you're getting included. It turns out they were very surprised to find that when people go the signal to say that they were getting included, the part of the brain that lit up were the parts of the brain that light up when we experience real physical pain, and this kind of led to the idea that there might be something called social pain. We experience social exclusion in the exact same way we experience physical pain. In fact, there even a research to say that if you take a Tylenol that help your social pain go down, just like it helps your physical pain go down. So maybe this is why even the way that we say in English, our language tend to mirror the idea for pain. We talk about heartbreak or homesickness. It is idea what the experience physical symptoms through a social recent experience. So it kind of suggests that there's some way that the lack of popularity makes us experience pain, and our brain is telling us with its most powerful signal you need to something about this. Don't get kicked out hurt. Make sure that you are safe. It turns out that there's some other research also that has to do with our DNA. What found that is even more powerful than we even realized. But before we talk about that, I just have to tell you briefly about something that really new, and it is the idea of epigenetics. Epigenetics is really the sense that while we all have our DNA, and every single cell of our bodies has DNA in its nucleus. That's DNA, not every gene is turned off. Some genes turn on later, and some genes never turn off. But what we've recently learned in epigenetics is that something what makes choose cell turn off certain DNA is something that happens in our environment. So believe it or not, someone could walk in the room. They could say hello to you, or they could say something not pleasant to you that kind of reject you, and that will actually affects what happens in your own self. And the reason why this is important is because you probably know many of our cells are dying every second, and new cells are dying every second. So if an experience happened to you, know the cell that well started growing to second from now are going to start relying on the DNA, what was activated but what happened to you before. In fact, it's been suggested that every 6 months also the person that interactive to what happened to us and choose prior health about 6 months ago. So we are constantly new renowned people that are living those picking it based on what happened to us months before. It turns out our social experience have an incredibly important impact on the DNA. So for the same reasons we talked about before with hunting and with our evolutionary legacy, we've learned that if something happens to us that makes us feel protected, then our bodies turn on specific DNA, and the DNA that turn on has to do with our physical health. So again, let's think again about cave people. If you were a person that was living back in those times, one of the things that happened while when you lived with others is you find that you grow a lot of goods, and the reason why is because viruses spread from human to human. So as long as you interacting with other people, your DNA is activated to develop immunity to viruses, and all of the genes that help us to resist viruses, they are regulating. In other words, they kind of turn on. If you were part of a head, there was much less of a chance that a dinosaur was going to come and eat your arm off. Therefore, you wouldn't have to have an inflammatory tubes of responsible in your body to keep health that bleeding limb and keep you to service. You wouldn't need that kind of informational project as much. Well, that happens is a minute we get, especially by others. We actually find that the genes that help us resist viruses become down regulated. In fact, you can take a blood test 14 minutes later and find that you can see the 6 so quickly. Meanwhile, the information responded all up regularly, so of course, if something happens to you for our minute today, that doesn't mean you're going to have an informational disease necessarily. But if you experience chronic relation over so much time, you experience ways of feelings that you're not part of the head. You are not someone that accepted and popular, then over time yourself will continually develop this up regulated in a matter responsible. So it turns out that popularity is actually changing the way that our DNA experiences it. This has major implication for health, and it turns out there's a way that has a feedback loop into our brains, and it even changes our mood and the expansion too. And we'll talk about more of that lesson. So in summary, it is important to remember that one of the reasons why we seem to care so much about popularity is that our special thoughts about being in the head is something we needed for safety, and the minute that we lose popularity of body is preparing us for what will happen when we've kicked out of the head, and our brain is telling us with the most powerful signal you're needed to do something to fix this. So back to other, do what you can and be part of group and that's really important. Our DNA is changing. This is all very adaptive, but unfortunately is not really helpful for us. Today it's the millennium that the life now. You can go out for a fun walk on our own, get eaten by dinosaur. So informationally your bodies helps us in a way that would have been useful millions of years ago, but is not necessarily helpful in today's society, and that's some of the reasons why popularity plays such a huge role today. But it has affection on the that aren't necessarily what we would have wished for.